It was the summer of 1974, amidst the tranquil beauty of the Siskiyou Mountains, just outside Copper, Oregon. A story unfolded that would send shivers down your spine. It was a time of innocence and family togetherness, when Richard Cowden and his beloved wife, Belinda June Cowden, decided to venture into the heart of the wilderness. Their mission, a peaceful family camping trip. With them, two precious souls, 5-year-old David and 5-month-old Melissa. But as the calendar turned to September 1st, on this serene camping expedition, fate took a chilling turn. In the depths of these mountains, an eerie and sinister event unfolded. The Cowden family simply vanished. In the peaceful confines of White City, Oregon, resided the Cowden family, a portrait of simple American life. Richard, a former Air Force sergeant, had transitioned into a new role, steering a log truck on the town's outskirts. His youthful energy of 28 was complemented by the warmth of his wife Belinda, a 22-year-old who had embraced the role of a full-time stay-at-home mum. Their home echoed with the laughter of their children. David, a curious 5-year-old, was always exploring, while 5-month-old Melissa brought endless smiles. Despite Richard's career change, his commitment never wavered, and the values he had learned during his time in the Air Force continued to guide him as a father and husband. During the summer of 1974, Richard had big plans for the Labor Day weekend ahead. He was all set to tackle some necessary household chores, with fixing the driveway at the top of his list. But a wrench was thrown into his plans when the truck he needed suddenly broke down. Undeterred by this setback, they decided to embrace spontaneity. They tossed caution aside and chose to embark on a camping trip to the Rogue River National Forest campground, a peaceful spot just outside Copper in Oregon. The area held significance because it was familiar to them, thanks to Belinda's mother, Ruth Grayson, residing nearby. They parked their 1956 Ford pickup truck on Carberry Creek Road, a short distance from the campsite. On September 1st, something notable happened in the Cowden family's story. Richard and his 5-year-old son David had a simple task: grab some milk from the Copper General store. They got there around 9 a.m, completed their errand and left the store. But things took an unexpected turn. After paying for the milk, Richard and David walked back towards the campground. The sun shone down as they walked, just like any other ordinary summer's day. Little did anyone realize that this moment would become the last confirmed sighting of any members of the Cowden family. Belinda's mother grew concerned as the evening passed with no sign of Richard, Belinda, and their children, as they failed to show up for dinner. Ruth decided to act and headed to the nearby campground, just a mile away from her home. As she reached the familiar camping spot, she noticed the Cowden family's things were left in place, undisturbed and frozen in time. Belinda's purse sat on the picnic table, along with a half-empty milk container that Richard and David had purchased earlier. A pack of Belinda's favourite cigarettes and some personal items were also strewn across the floor. Richard's untouched wallet, which contained $21, truck keys and his expensive wristwatch, added to the mystery. The family's truck, which was parked on the road, held their belongings, including their clothing, with only their swimsuits missing. But the family itself seemed to have vanished. Struggling to process the troubling situation, Ruth had no choice but to alert the police. Lieutenant Mark Hazar, leading the case, later mentioned that the investigation had experienced a brief delay, perhaps by a day, due to the absence of initial signs pointing to any violent incident at the campsite. Officer Erickson, a state trooper, remembered the camp had an eerie vibe, even the milk remained on the table. They were equally baffled. The disappearance of an entire family demanded immediate action. A search was conducted as the police spread out in the dense woods of the Rogue River campgrounds. In Copperville, worry and suspicion hovered over the community when the initial search for the missing family turned up empty. At sunrise the following morning, Droopy, the loyal family basset hound, brought a glimmer of hope. Watching intently, the townspeople observed as Droopy scratched persistently at the Copper General Store's door. News spread rapidly as press releases circulated to news outlets along the West Coast. The story gained media attention, amplifying the town's plea for assistance. Tips trickled in, each one offering a faint ray of hope amidst the uncertainty. Images of the family captured in faded photographs populated screens and newspapers. The emotional story became a common topic of conversation, with everyone grasping at any fragment of information that could solve the puzzle. With joint efforts of the Oregon State Police and Jackson County Police, investigators conducted more than 150 interviews to untangle the mystery. Multiple interviews were held with individuals present at the campground on September 1st. A family from Los Angeles, having reached the campground by 5 p.m., recounted an incident. While strolling through the park that evening, they observed two men and a woman parking their pickup truck nearby. The family recounted, "They acted like they were waiting for us to leave, and frankly, they made us nervous, so we moved on." A $2,000 reward was offered in exchange for information regarding the family's disappearance. The town's collective strength emerged as local National Guard members and concerned citizens banded together for a coordinated search. They meticulously scoured forests, trails, and roads, leaving no stone unturned in their quest for answers. From above, aircraft equipped with advanced infrared cameras scanned the landscapes. A petition soon surfaced, bearing hundreds of signatures. The town's call reached out to the highest authority, the FBI. Their plea for federal involvement was an attempt to find a breakthrough. However, the request was rejected, given the absence of evidence supporting claims of the family being kidnapped or interstate transportation. The search, now recognized as Oregon State's most extensive ever, stood as a testament to the community's resilience in the face of adversity. After 7 months of uncertainty and uneasy silence, a glimmer of hope finally pierced through the fog of doubts. The town's long-held questions seemed to find a crack of light. Oregon State Police Detective Richard Davis took the lead investigator role. Detective Davis dived into the case, and an unexpected twist followed. The discovery occurred on April 12, 1975. Two hikers were in the vicinity of Carberry Creek and had been exploring the expansive Rogue River area. Amidst the woods, around 7 miles from the Cowden family's campsite, they would stumble upon a chilling discovery. A skull and remains of a decomposing male adult, his body bound to a tree on a steep hillside, later confirmed to be Richard Cowden. But the revelations didn't end there. Not far from Richard's tragic discovery, tucked beneath a small cave, more of the Cowden family's story unravelled. the bodies of an adult female, a child, and an infant were discovered. Positive identification of the bodies as those of the Cowden family was later made via dental records. Belinda and young David's lives were cut short by gunshot wounds. 5-month-old Melissa faced a different, equally shattering fate: severe blunt force trauma to her small head. Unfortunately, the advanced decomposition made it impossible to determine what had happened to Richard and what caused his death. Judging by the positioning of Belinda's and the children's remains within the cave, Lieutenant Kazar held the belief that the perpetrator was likely a local resident who knew the area and its surroundings well and was familiar with the cave's whereabouts. Following the retrieval of the family's remains, a Grants Pass resident who had participated as a volunteer in the search informed the police that back in September, he had combed through the cave in which Belinda and the children's bodies were discovered. He recalled that during that time, the bodies were not present in the cave. With unwavering resolve, investigators meticulously combed every inch of the crime scene. Amid the fragments of evidence, Detective Davis and his team uncovered a pivotal clue: an isolated .22 caliber bullet, suggesting the weapon involved in this tragic event. Several potential suspects came under scrutiny during the investigation into the Cowden family murders. One of the individuals who drew considerable attention was Dwaine Lee Little, a 25-year-old resident of nearby Rouge, Oregon. Dwaine Little's background underwent thorough examination, particularly due to a past conviction dating back to 1964, when he was just 15 years old, for the rape and murder of a teenage girl. Having completed a 10-year sentence at the Oregon State Penitentiary in Salem, he was granted parole on May 24, 1974. The focus intensified on Dwaine Little as investigators discovered that he and his parents had spent time in the Copper Rogue River area during Labor Day weekend. This revelation prompted a meticulous exploration of any potential connections. A local resident played a pivotal role in the inquiry, notifying investigators that both Little and his parents had recorded their presence by signing a guest book at one of his remote cabins in the vicinity over the Labor Day weekend. Police would later suspect that the individuals spotted in a truck by the Los Angeles family at the campground could have potentially been Little and his parents. This suspicion was fueled by the fact that their truck's description aligned with what the family had reported. Although Little and his parents refuted any involvement in the Cowdens' disappearance, a miner who possessed a cabin in the vicinity came forward, asserting that on Monday, September 2, 1974, Dwaine Little and his parents had visited and left their signatures in a guest book he maintained for visitors. In pursuit of additional evidence, a search warrant was executed on the property owned by Little's parents, which also served as his place of residence. Despite not locating a firearm, a significant discovery was made. An internal spring component consistent with a .22 caliber Marlin rifle was uncovered during the search. Dwaine Little found himself back in prison when his parole was revoked due to his girlfriend's report of seeing him with a firearm in December of that year. Following this parole violation, he was once again incarcerated. He regained his freedom on parole come April 26, 1977. However, on June 2, 1980, a chilling incident unfolded in Portland, Oregon, as Dwaine Little extended a helping hand to a pregnant woman who was stranded due to her car breaking down. He would then physically and sexually assault 23-year-old Margie Hunter. Miraculously, both Hunter and her unborn child survived the ordeal, but Little's fate took a severe turn. He was handed 3 consecutive life-term sentences for the attempted homicide. Curiously, despite the presence of a plethora of circumstantial evidence, law enforcement never managed to establish a connection between any member of the Little family and the Cowden family murders. Investigative teams meticulously examined a range of murder and disappearance cases, particularly those scattered throughout the Pacific Northwest, searching for any parallels to the Cowden family's situation. During 1974, a distressing pattern emerged. 8 women had fallen victim to sadistic murders. Despite thorough efforts, investigators were unable to find any connections between these cases and the Cowden family incident. Subsequently, it was revealed that the 8 unfortunate victims had fallen prey to the notorious serial killer Ted Bundy. Richard and Belinda Cowden, alongside their children David and Melissa, were laid to rest at the Eagle Point National Cemetery in Jackson County, Oregon. Rusty Kelly, a fellow inmate who was once confined with Dwaine Little, would later allege that Little admitted to murdering the Cowden family. Despite a significant amount of indirect evidence, Little has never faced legal charges for the Cowden family murders. And despite the unrelenting efforts of both local and state law enforcement, in addition to the support from countless private citizens, the heart-wrenching murder of the Cowden family remains unsolved.